Going to call to order the meeting of the Municipal Utilities Commission, Monday, November 18th at 5:46 p.m. If we can go and get roll call.
Chair Van Oosting.
Present.
Vice Chair Dimmitt.
Present.
Commissioner Retberg.
Present.
Commissioner Wigren.
Present.
And Commissioner Custer's not here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first order of business is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting on July 25th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, approval of minutes passes. Next item is a consideration of public comments. Do we have anyone from the public wanting to address the commission?
We do not have any public comments.
All right, new business. Review and recommendation for exception to the requirement to connect to sewer. And this is for Mr. Larry Matthews, located on Roma Road. Staff, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Discuss item A. This is for request for a variance for sewer connection for Mr. Matthews. As you know, utility regs say if you're within 500 feet, you have to connect. Mr. Roma's parcel 322-18085 is actually less than 100 feet away from an existing sewer connection. These homes, this part of this subdivision, I think, was built before it was out in the county, before the city annexed it, so there was no sewer there. A couple of these parcels, I think, got connected by one guy that extended it to the point where it is now. The total extension that would be required to serve the parcel would be 235 feet, which includes the frontage. You guys always ask how long septic systems last, so I included some information in the packet this time. The range is between 15 and 40 years, so it could be any day now, it could be another 10 years or so before these other homes' septic systems fail. So I feel like there's a good chance that he would be eligible for a payback. So staff recommends a sewer extension be made in accordance with utility regs where it's feasible to serve the lot by gravity. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for staff at this time?
I have one question. If the sewer main is less than 100 feet away, can you expound on why the total frontage would be 235 feet? That was confusing for me.
Well, the total length of the connection is 235 feet. I want to say this is, I'm not sure how far this is. That's actually a pretty good question. Maybe my numbers are wrong. I do know that it's less than 100 feet, though. It's like 70 feet or something like that. But it's well within the 500-foot threshold.
And then current state, the property or the parcel across the street, directly across, would be the only real applicable parcel that somebody would build on and,
Right, the
Have
one
like
across the street is the only one that's vacant.
Mhm.
These other neighboring properties all have septic systems. But again, most of these homes in this area were built somewhere between the mid-90s and the early 2000s. So there's a good chance that the septic systems are going to fail in the next 10 years or so. There's at least some chance anyway.
The attached to septic down the way was what, 300 feet?
I'm sorry?
If you have a line and your septic fails, I know it's a different footage.
Yeah, it's 300 feet.
300 feet. And so if he was to get or sewer to that point, he'd also be able, how the street curves, is that a down feed too? All the way down, going past the 85 parcel, all the way to like 84, 83, all the way down? Are those able to attach in the future?
All these down here?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, any one of these in the future that's within 300 feet would be able to connect if their septic fails. He only gets a payback for the ones that are on frontage, though. That's the thing. So the paybacks go by frontage. So any of these that are on the front, have frontage for this line here would be eligible for a payback if the septic fails. These over here would just be required to extend.
So that would only be 4 parcels
4.
Yeah, you got one vacant parcel,
and 3 occupied.
1, 2, 3, yeah, so 4 total.
And what would his payback be?
Well, that depends on how much it costs to do the project.
Okay, so whatever it costs, it would be divided by 4 then, if he takes a piece and the other 3.
Well, it's based on frontage. So like, for example, this guy's gonna pay more than this guy here.
88A,
Yeah, 88A would pay more.
okay.
And 062.
and so the ultimate goal for the city would be to connect to the bottom lower right corner where there's another existing sewer termination?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So the ultimate goal for the city would be to connect all of Roma Road, right, from that close to where we're talking about in this parcel, all the way to the lower right-hand corner of the,
Right, so there's an existing manhole here, but I don't think, there might be a high point in here somewhere. So some of these would go this way and the other ones would go to, I guess, the southeast.
so the benefit to the neighborhood then would be pretty nominal for him to extend the sewer to his parcel.
It would be, yeah, it would be a good benefit because, as I was saying before, all these homes out here are the neighborhood was built before the city annexed it, so there was no sewer requirement. So that would be the goal, is to try to go ahead and get sewer extended to the rest of the neighborhood.
Are there any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to address the commission?
Yes, thank you.
Of course.
I was just gonna, he mentioned the homes being, I think most of them were 2003 and newer. Like you mentioned, only the one lot is vacant, purchased before 2010. They live upstate New York, or in New York State. I don't know what their plans are, but they've had it over 15 plus years. It only dates back to 2010, so I'm not for sure when they purchased that land and what they plan on doing. Yeah, and then the only reason sewer's there now is just that contractor built them and added them, and then Angle Homes kind of bypassed and did his own thing up above. That's why the sewer's up higher. That's kind of all I have. You guys have the quote for the sewer. I was quoted 40,000+ with engineering fees not added or taxes or anything like that. So it could be looking at $50,000 just from that green spot on GIS was 200 and some feet to my property, so I'm not for sure where the 100 feet is, but from that green spot on GIS, grant you it's an estimate, but it was 220 feet I think I got. So, and then however far I need to go into on my property as well, so that's kind of all I have to add. I appreciate it, thank you.
Quick question, the estimate you received, is that including the cost of asphalt repair as well to the road? Or is that just the pipe installation itself?
Work beyond the scope outlined in the additional work, rock, cement, soils, evacuation, yeah, I'm not for sure, it doesn't, yeah.
I'll read it so everyone can put eyeballs on it. So I have an application or an estimate for Larry Matthews. It gives several prices: a 3-bedroom septic system for $10,900, a 4-bedroom septic system for $11,900, and then the sewer main extension is $40,000 plus approximate. The scope of work includes soil testing, engineers of soils, permits, construction survey, staking, or layout items of any kind. Work beyond the scope outlined in the line item format herein without a change order in writing to secure payment for any additional items of work. Doesn't look like there's road repair included. And that's just a guesstimation based off of GIS. It looks like it's actually under asphalt, so I'm assuming whoever installs the sewer would be required to make those repairs as well, at an additional cost.
Yeah, they would be required to do pavement restoration, and I'm assuming that the quote probably, I don't know if they know or not, they're probably gonna end up having to put in a manhole to make that bend around that turn there. That usually bumps things up a little bit.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Matthews?
How long have you owned
I'm sorry,
how long have you owned the parcel?
2019, just before COVID, and then kind of waited till save up money.
And then a question for staff, when was that sewer installed in that neighborhood?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Okay. How about the main extension that contractor paid for? When was that installed? They got to the sewer to where it is now.
Are you talking about just the one on Roma, or are you talking about the?
The Roma.
Yeah, just the one on Roma, the most recent addition.
98. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it goes past 98, but I think it was for the parcels to the south, the ones highlighted in green.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure when that extension was done.
Are there any other questions for staff or for Mr. Matthews?
No.
Is this, Mr. Matthews, is this your primary residence intention?
It will be, yes.
If there are no more questions for staff or Mr. Matthews, is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I had one more thing I wanted to add that you might consider too. 88A, if we actually got paybacks from the adjacent parcels, 88A is going to pay more than the applicant will for at the end of the day for the line. He'll pay for the bulk of the cost of the line. Because again, it's based on frontage. The applicant has the least amount of frontage, so he'll have the upfront cost he has to pay, but whenever he starts getting paybacks, 88A is gonna end up paying more than he will.
In the event the septic at 88.8 fails within the next 20 years.
That's right.
If it fails in 21 years, there's no payback.
That's correct.
88A was built in 2000.
It's coming to the life expectancy of it, kind of.
I make a motion, we grant the variance.
We have a motion to grant the variance. Is there any discussion on that, or would someone like to make a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept the variance. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Variance is accepted.
All right.
All right, next item up for discussion, new water service for the Circle K. The city's water service policy states that any request for water service for a new subdivision shall require city council authorization. Do we have any comments on this, or are we familiar with what's going on? Would
This
anyone?
is Airway and Bank.
Yeah, and I left out the part where the regs actually say any new subdivision or undivided parcel, so it includes commercial lots as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve the new water service for Circle K?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. And then item C, changing the sewer availability definition threshold. So council has directed city staff to consider changes to the regulations to reduce the number of exceptions granted by the Municipal Utility Commission. Of the 7 meetings between January of 2023 to present, 6 have resulted in sewer connection exceptions. City staff believes that reducing the threshold for connection from 500 to 300 feet will reduce the number of exceptions granted. Would we like to have some discussion on that?
Yeah, I think I would. As I've thought about this, I mean, here's a great example that we can look at where a reduction in distance wouldn't have changed an outcome necessarily for this specific scenario. And so I guess my question I'd present would be, are these regulations serving the communities, serving the city, or serving the citizens, or what should they be serving? And if they're not in alignment with any of those, then what should they be? I'm not sure changing the distance necessarily.
Yeah, I can tell you that council's statement was, why do we have stuff that we're not enforcing, essentially? That was kind of what they were like, if we've got the utility regs and we're just gonna grant variances every time we do it, then we obviously need to change something, so.
Does the city partake in any expenses? When,
No, the regs have been this way for, I mean, a very long time, where basically development pays for development, right? So if you're gonna develop a parcel, you have to extend the water and sewer to the parcel. It's been that way for a really long time.
So when these variances go to city council, do they hear all the details, or do they just hear that the
Oh, sure.
MUG granted a variance?
Right,
So they're aware that a private landowner wanting to build a retirement home of some sort is being asked to pay essentially $80,000 to $90,000 to extend a sewer, which is more than likely more than what the property is even worth.
right. All that gets discussed.
Okay.
What's also discussed is the fact that every time we grant a variance, that's another potential sewer connection that we're gonna lose. And it's money for the city, potential revenue source to the city. And you don't just lose it for a little while, you're gonna lose it as long as they've got that septic system kept up, so. Sure.
I thought of this well last week. And the council noted that the system. Something that what if we look at percentage of an area being built out already? We're not getting money to see if they can back it. So maybe instead of reducing distance, I just talked about 80% of the elements.
Well, I can see charging, a developer, obviously.
Right.
But has anybody gone back and looked at all the times that somebody has paid? And has anybody tracked how many people have actually gotten a payback?
Maybe so, I don't know. I personally haven't looked. This is what was suggested as far as trying to fix the regs. I think there's definitely a lot more that can be looked at. Like the number of adjacent septic connections is probably something that should be considered if we were gonna change anything. Cause I feel like that's probably what drives most of these discussions. I'm not sure how many times I've had to answer the question, how long does a septic system last, right? That's usually the first thing you guys ask. So that's something I could definitely take back to council and to the city manager to consider.
This is like an open discussion, right? We're allowed to discuss all the
Sure.
details. Okay, so I think the majority of what drives the variance approvals is the cost, right? Trying to push off a substantial amount of money onto one customer to front the bill, like you said, in hopes that in the future somebody connects to it and then he gets some of that money back. It's a lot to ask of a single individual property owner, right? Again, if it was a developer and they're building 5 or 6 homes, it'd be different, right? Because then they're there for profit.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. This is a really good example. If, for example, where did it all go? If, for example, all the adjacent lots were vacant, would that have changed your decision?
That would have had, in my opinion, that would have had a more impactful
Right, because
measure on my decision.
chances of getting a payback are a lot higher.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we know that people do what we call, like, they've joked about it in construction, the weekend septic replacement.
Yeah,
And I heard that happens a lot more than people realize.
well, that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
They're supposed to get a permit, but
Yeah,
I guess people do unpermitted work all the time, so.
because they can replace it once or something like that was supposedly what the rule was before,
Yeah.
someone said. Has the city ever considered doing some kind of program where the city has a fund set aside to help people like this? Because I know a lot of the ones we approved have been where it's like 460 feet, and then they have to put it across their frontage, because one of them was almost 700 feet, he had to take it.
Right,
Things like that, it's not even close. It's like, okay, he's 480 feet, 465 feet to the start of his property line, and then his property line's 100 or 200 feet.
Right.
Like we had that one with the mobile homes or whatever recently, where it was like, do a split and just kind of just instead, you know.
Right.
There was a different variance we did on that one. Because it is a huge cost on some of these things, and at least the city's getting building permit fees and all those kind of things, and
So
property taxes.
the city has in their capital budget funds to do water and sewer extensions. I don't know exactly how those are prioritized, but I will tell you there's a good chunk of the city that still does not have sewer. And so for every one of these that I bring you guys, there's another 100 or so out there that need to be done. So it's really a matter of priorities and
Right,
politics, to be frank. You know, so
yeah.
And that kind of leads to my initial thought or question, whatever you want to call it. The city's goal is kind of understated as we want to have everybody on sewer. And I'm not sure I understand the intention there. That's why I asked, the regulations for the benefit of the city or the community or the citizens, because sure, we get some revenue from sewer connections, that's great. But are we discouraging growth or business or private citizens from coming because they know that they're going to have a large cost to build, right? So what are we trying to prioritize? And that's where I suggest that we look at the regulations and see what best fits where the primary objective or goal would be. I liked what you said, because I think in this case, I agree. I would have considered it differently if it had been 20% developed and there was a high probability of future payback. I think that matters. But when I evaluate these, I always try to think through, okay, who's the beneficiary and who's going to be footing the bill, per se.
the end goal, as far as getting everyone on sewer, has some to do with city revenue and also some to do with just best practice. It's better to have communities that are on sewer than to have a bunch of individual septic systems.
Can the city handle all of if everybody went to sewer?
Well, sure, because once you put everybody on sewer, you've got more revenue to support our maintenance of the existing system.
So the existing system can handle it?
Sure,
Without-
yeah, most
okay.
definitely, right.
Okay.
Can I ask two questions? One, how does parcel 62 pay back since it doesn't go percentage? Like that way?
Yeah, parcel 62 would actually only have a partial payback, right?
And then there's nothing that considers inflation or change of dollar value over 20 years.
That's a good point too.
No interest.
No,
You'd be investing in having a loss for inflation purposes, right?
right.
And then that's the other thing too is, I mean, the city has no control over what it costs to install that sewer, because the property owner is going out getting individual estimates from private contractors.
Right.
And so they may overpay substantially. So is that payback based off of their receipt? Here, this is what it cost me to install, so.
It's based on their actual cost.
So then now you got, for instance, 88A, who is paying this amount for, say, 100 feet of frontage road, but then someone across town is paying 50% less because that person who installed that got a better deal.
Or
Essentially.
he is the contractor.
Yeah, and so there's really no,
Sure, yeah,
okay,
it's the part of the market. It's market driven, so.
When the city installs sewer on their own dime, do they do it, or do you farm it out to another contractor?
Oh, it's all contracted out.
Okay.
We have a job order contract. So it's people that we've selected that know our system and that we're familiar with and do work for us all the time.
Is that the list you give to the homeowners to pick from?
We don't give a list to the homeowners. They're
Okay.
kind of on their own.
Question.
I can't legally do that.
Well, no, I just didn't know, because it might be somebody that doesn't know of your systems and how to install
Right.
them and stuff. So that's all.
Is there a way for the city to, like, you have that approved list, and you already probably know roughly what their cost per foot is? Has anybody ever looked to say our price, if we have the city do it and charge the homeowner cheaper than what they go and get bids for? Like say they give it to the people on your list, give it $5 a foot, but they're going out and getting bids and they're $8 to $10 a foot. Like Commissioner was saying, it's a lot more depending on people, but if you guys had a better rate as a city
Sure,
to offer people that are trying to put in these,
right.
go through these.
But anytime that we do the work, it comes out of our capital budget.
Yeah,
And again, there's already a lot of potential projects that money could go toward.
or what I'm saying is, could you guys say, have an agreement with these contractors that when someone needs to do it, they select these 3 or 5 contractors or whatever it is on the list, and you already kind of know what the cost is?
Yeah,
So
well,
it could
that,
be cheaper than.
that
than
may or
going
may
out
not
there.
work out in their benefit, right? Because if you've got somebody that's got a backhoe that can work in the city's right of way, then maybe you get a better deal than if you go through one of the city's contractors.
Well, that would be the option, right? You as the city can say, okay, you need to extend the sewer 238 feet. If you have us do it, this is what it's gonna cost you. But you don't have to have us do it. You can go out and get your own bid if you want and have somebody else do it for a cheaper price.
Like the people on your list, they'll do it for X.
So we would do it, and
And
then
then-
they would reimburse us
Yes,
for it.
they would pay you for it,
Because we get a
yes.
better deal presumably.
Or
Correct,
they
yeah.
could just have an idea of what it would cost with your people as a comparison versus the open market, because these people are doing the work for the city, they have ties to the
Yeah.
city, they want that.
Well, the other thing too, to remember, and this is one thing I forgot to talk about, is Mr. Matthews' bid is before the sewer has been designed. So it may go up, it may go down, just depends on what his engineer comes up with. And usually the engineer will provide an official cost estimate of how much it's gonna cost. And they base that on bid tabs, so.
So the city's not involved with that engineering?
No. We have to review it. It comes to our office, we review and approve the plans, but we don't get involved in the cost estimate or anything.
So if someone gives you a receipt and those other parcels has a septic, they just cut the city a check for the fraction. They just pass them to the original builder.
I'm not exactly sure how the mechanics work on that. It's pretty much that simple though, as far as I know.
Wouldn't know.
I want to say that there's something in the regs about we have to audit the receipts. Yeah. So they can't turn in a receipt for what looks like 300 feet of sewer when all they built was 150, that kind of thing.
Or they paid 50,000, but the receipt shows they paid 100,000.
Right.
Okay.
Either way, you have kind of a taxpayer loss there,
Mhm.
because if you have the city do the work and then these parcel owners pay back the city, until they pay, you've basically had the taxpayers bear that burden,
Right.
instead of the parcel owner bearing the burden. And so either way, it's kind of a challenge, I get that. Just a question, as our regulations stand, you said they've been that way for a long time. What do other cities do? Do we have anything we can compare to?
That's a good question. I can definitely take that back to the city manager and we can do a survey of some sort, figure out what everybody else does.
I'm not the most creative person in the world, so I'd like to steal from other people if I can, not
Right.
private property or anything, but steal ideas if you can. And so, because I look at kind of what we've all said, I think that there's probably I would favor a different way if we could, but at the same time, since we have this governing body, the right word, but this volunteer body that reviews these issues, I think that should be part of the plan still. I think it's helpful to have a variance possibility rather than a hard and fast rule that we can't escape. So if anything,
Absolutely.
that's what I'd suggest we keep, is the provision to have variances that are approved or denied.
Yeah, I don't think getting rid of muck is on the table.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have, like you said, a variance policy. we're just trying to be a little more successful in what gets approved, what doesn't, kind of thing.
I can tell you, if the people are going to do it for like a flip or sale or something, then it's like, no, they can pay for it and build it into the cost of the house versus something you're gonna live in.
Yeah,
If you're just trying to make a profit,
it's a significant burden for a single-family homeowner.
yeah.
When I first became interim city engineer, almost a year ago now, and I realized what a kind of a burden it was for some of these folks, it really surprised me, you know. But I do understand that in terms of the city, we want to connect as many as possible, so that's what my job is, try to do that.
Okay.
Any more discussion on, sorry, tablet shut off. Any more discussion on the changing the sewer availability definition from the 500 to 300?
I mean, if we're gonna have this committee and the variances,
Yeah.
why go through the procedure?
I can always just
Can I make a motion?
table this and bring you guys something different later on if that's what you would prefer.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
convinced that the logic makes sense to me based
Right.
on what I've been part of for the last year or whatever. I'm not sure that would have made any difference in my decision-making. I like that we're talking about this, though, so I would like to explore other options if we can.
Sure.
Maybe reference other cities, what they have in place, but I mean, I guess I would agree with reducing it to 300 feet, although I just don't think it would
Not gonna
change
change
the
much.
outcomes too
Yeah.
much.
So I would like to make a motion to table this discussion until we can maybe hear other solutions or other ideas that can be presented
Definitely.
to help make this more feasible for the private homeowner. I think I would like to keep, well, again, tabled, but the 500 seems reasonable for general contractors, right? The subdivision people that are building these homes. But I would definitely like to hear other ideas on how we can help lessen the burden, the financial burden on a private homeowner.
Okay.
So,
Ask for a report in terms of how
I think they could. Yeah.
Can we get,
Yeah, that's what I would like to see.
Okay.
because if there's nobody ever paying back, it kind of.
Some youth point.
Okay. So you want to report on what percentage of these actually result in a payback?
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
Okay.
how many sewer extensions actually result in other homeowners tying onto it, which results in a payback for the original investor?
Right.
Okay.
And then
do
also
that.
what other cities are doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
I'll
so,
second the motion.
okay, so we have
Table
a,
it.
we have a first and a second to table this topic. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. All right, any announcements by commission members? Any other reports or anything anyone would like to see? Okay. All right, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.